Hi there, I'm Michelle the Painter from Berkshire Paint and Sip, and this is Paint and Sip at Home. Alright, so today I'm going to be painting Winter Princess, and I'm sipping on some raspberry tea. And if you enjoy this process, I do hope that you like and subscribe to my channel, and that you also check out my Patreon page where you're going to find additional painting perks. So let's get painting and let's get sipping. Alright, so for my materials today, I'm going to be using a stretched and primed 16 by 20 inch canvas. If you're painting along with me, you can certainly switch up the size, but that's what I'll be using. I'm going to be using acrylic paint today. My colors are titanium white, burnt umber, which I like to call brown, green oxide, Mars black, and cobalt blue. And of course you can switch up those colors if you'd like to, but that's what I'll be using. For my tools today, I have a white piece of chalk that I'm going to be using for some drawing, and then I have 3 brushes from my personal brush line, which is Michelle the Painter brushes. I have a 3/4 inch wide flat bristle brush. I have a number 8 round synthetic brush, and I have a number 3 round synthetic brush, and I will refer to these as small, medium, and large as we go through the painting process. And of course you can switch those up as well if you'd like to. If you're painting along with me, you'll probably want to have a cup of water for washing your brushes, as well as a paper towel for drying your brushes. And down below this video, in the video description, I will be providing you with a couple of additional resources that can help you throughout your painting process. One of them is a link where you could purchase the same exact paint kit that I'm using, from the same size and type of canvas to the same type of paints and brushes and all the good stuff in between. So that's there. There's also a link where you could download a free image of the final painting. So you can print that and use it as visual reference as you go through the painting process. And there's also written step-by-step instructions down there for you as well. And that's all we're going to need today. Alright, so what we're going to do for the first step is we're going to be painting a background for the entire canvas. I'm going to be using my large paintbrush. I'm going to be using black, blue, and white to pre-mix myself a really soft, neutral type of grayish blue color that we'll be using for the entire canvas. It's going to add for a great base for us to work off of for our details. So I have pre-mixed my color. I'm going to be using my large brush to paint, but I'm going to use my medium brush to show you how I got to this custom color. So this is the custom color that I'm going for right here. How I got to there was I created a medium gray type of color by using black and white, which I'm going to create right in this little corner here. So a little bit of black and white is going to give me a grayish type of a tone. And then what I'm going to do is I add a little bit of my cobalt blue to it. So this gives me this nice kind of smoky type of blue, medium to dark blue type of a color that I'll be using as my base for the entire landscape. So I'm going to put my medium brush away. I'm going to take out my large brush, and I'm just going to paint the background. I don't need to use any special brush stroke. I'm really just going for a tone to my canvas. So a lot of times what I'll do, if I find that there's going to be a common bond between colors in my canvas, I will utilize that common color as the background or as my base coat for the canvas. So that way, as I'm building those details and I'm building atmospheric dimension and all the other great things that go into a painting, it becomes harmonious with this one color that I've used as my tone for the canvas itself. It also helps to ensure that you have painted the entire canvas. Sometimes when we just go for details right on top of that raw canvas, what happens is the paint doesn't cover all the way. We've got some spots of that white canvas that show through the paint and it looks unfinished. So by toning your canvas like this, or providing it with a base coat of something, that will ensure that you have covered the entire canvas and it looks like a nice finished product, and you won't run the risk of missing spots and things of that nature. So I'm creating a nice full base coat here. If I do miss any spots for whatever reason, if it looks a little streaky, I'm okay with that because I know we're going to be doing a second coat on the entire canvas. You could paint the edges or the sides of your canvas as well. That again will allow the whole project to look nice and finished and done. And then I just go back and forth like this to make sure that my paint is nice and level. And then we will be using this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be painting the sky, the hill, and the road. I'm going to use my large bristle brush. I do recommend before you start this step that you make sure that your canvas is dry. So this is that time where you get to take an extra long break if you'd like to. Or you can find some kind of fun fanning method to get it dry. Or you can do as I did and just whip out a blow dryer and get it dry that way. What I'm going to do is I'm going to be creating some atmospheric dimension with some misty fog and some kind of enchanted feel to it. I'll be doing my sky. I'm going to have it, my sky is going to be a little bit lighter over on the right hand side. So as my princess is walking down the road, it's as if she's walking towards a light. So I'm going to have my sky a little bit lighter over here, and it's going to go darker up towards the top. My hill is going to be dark at the top and get a little bit lighter down at the bottom, and then my road is going to be pretty light over here and kind of get a little bit darker here. What I'm going to do before I start this step is I'm going to pre-mix myself one color, which is going to be a dark blue that I'm going to be using for my hill. So I'm going to use my medium brush to mix my colors so I can show you how to get there. This is my dark blue that I'm going for. How I got to this was I used some of my custom background color that we made, and I added a little bit more blue and a little bit more black to it. So I'm making it a deeper, darker, richer tone. So we can use this for our mountain hill type of area. So this is looking pretty good, maybe a little bit darker to match this one I pre-made over here. So there we go. That looks pretty good. So now that I've got that, I just wanted that ready before I started the step so I could go right in from one area to the next. I'm going to start with my sky, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of white paint on my large brush, and I'm going to give myself a couple of markers to tell myself to stop when I get this far down my canvas. So on the right hand side, I'm going to find myself about halfway up or down my canvas. I'm going to come about 2 inches above that, make myself a little marker, and then on the left hand side, I'm going to be a little bit higher than that one, so maybe come down about 3 inches. These are just stopping barriers for me so I don't go any further than that. I'm going to have my sky kind of riding the top of my hill, so I'm going to make it go up a little bit and slope down a little bit on this side. So I have just white paint on my brush right now. I don't need my sky to be anything perfect or my hill to be anything perfect at this point. I'm really just looking for it to be nice and bright over on this right hand side. So I'm starting with my white paint over here, and I'm using a circular or scrubbing type of brush stroke. I'm kind of riding the top where I want my hill to go, and then just bringing it down a little bit in through here. Now I'm going to pick up on my dirty brush my background blue plus a little bit of white. So I have my background blue plus a little bit of white on my brush. I'm going to start over on this right hand side just to get this light area to blend up into the top of the dark part of the sky like this, and then I just do the same thing. I just kind of use this circular brush stroke to soften this misty area that we've created at the top of that hill. And if I needed to, I could certainly just keep picking up my dark blue to get it to blend into the area above it, but I'm thinking that that's looking pretty good. So I'm going to move right down into my hill. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to separate where my road is to the hill. So I'm going to just use my dirty brush with a little bit more of my background blue plus a touch of white on my brush. I'm going to come, if this is about halfway up or down my canvas, I'm a little bit below that. Make myself a mark, and then down on this left hand side I'm going to come up about 2.5 to 3 inches. I'm going to connect these two with just a real sketcherly type of line to get myself the edge of my road. And then I'm going to use the same circular brush stroke to go up this hill. In a minute, I'm going to start picking up that custom dark blue that we created, so that way it will get nice and dark as it goes up. Right now, I'm just going to pick up a little bit more of my custom, the background blue plus white, so I can get this to go just a little bit lighter in through here. So again, we have that nice atmospheric dimension. Now I'm going to start picking up my dark blue that we created on my dirty brush. So what this is going to do is it's going to give us the appearance of the hill going up. It's going to have the appearance of maybe mist or you know, some wintry, weathery mix along the way. I just keep picking up a little bit more of my dark blue color. I'm going to leave some lighter spots to maybe make it look like there's a little bit of fogginess. And at the top of my hill, I'm going to make it really soft. So I don't want any real clean lines at the top. I want it to really just look like it's foggy at the top of that hill. So I'm going to even, if I want to, overlap it a little bit into what was that, you know, the lighter area from the sky. And then I'm just going to pick up my my background blue on my dirty brush to get this to blend in. So you could really have as much dark spots or light spots within this, as long as you can kind of keep that upper region dark and the bottom region of it a little bit on the lighter side. That's going to give you that dimensional element to it. The dark spots, when they dry, they're going to make it look like there's a little dip in that hill. The softness at the edges of the hill are going to just make it look like there's some nice fog at the top of there. So that's about all I'm going to do on that. And when it dries, if I feel like I want to add any more to it, I certainly will. Like, I just picked up a little bit more white to just get my fogginess in there the way that I want. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my road. So I'm going to have it lighter over here and just darker over here. I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put white with a little bit of brown on my brush. So I'm picking up white with a tiny bit of brown. So it's mostly white, tiny bit of brown. What the brown is going to do is make this white not so bright white. It's going to help to add a little bit of earthiness to it. I'm going to start it over in this corner here. I'm going to separate out a little section here I'm going to have a big tree. So I'm going to come up here about 2 inches, and then I'm going to give myself just this real messy kind of line in through here. And I'm wiggling my brush left to right in order to give myself some kind of texture to this little snowy area. This is going to be hidden. This part of the road is going to be hidden by a tree. But I like to kind of make sure I've covered all the area in case there's little peekaboo spots from on the side of the tree that might not cover everything. As I go in through here, I'm also just going to soften that. So it's like the snow road goes into the bottom of that hill. We're going to have trees along here, so this doesn't have to be perfect. I'm going to bring this down to where I marked it in through here. So something like this, just kind of letting myself run out of paint right now. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up a little bit more white paint just to get this nice and kind of bright going in through here. And then I'm going to start picking up my background blue to get it to blend down. So I'm picking up my background blue plus white on my brush right now to get this to blend down into the darkness of the path or road, whatever you want to consider this to be. But this transition from the light to the dark is going to make it look like she's walking towards her bright path of sorts, or wherever this wintry traveling is taking her to. This whole area is going to be covered by her dress, so I'm just kind of allowing myself to have another layer in through here. And then I'm just going to close off this edge over here with a little bit more of my background blue. And then we are going to be using this same, actually let's use this same brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, picking up a little bit more white right now. Once you've got this done, you can wash and dry this large brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to do the first layer to our trees. I'm going to be using my large bristle brush. The colors I'm using are black and green. I'm going to have two different size type of trees. I'm going to have some smaller ones lining the top side of my road so they look a little bit further away, and then I'm going to have two huge ones flanking the sides of my canvas. I'm going to be using black and green, and I'm going to be using a dotting type of technique. These type of trees are representational of pine trees, which are typically in a triangular type of shape. So as I do this, I'm going to be using kind of the side of my brush to tap in these triangle type shapes for these smaller ones, and then up in the on the bigger ones, they'll be in a triangular type of shape, but we'll have some little branches coming out. I'm going to start with the small ones first. I'm going to put a little bit of black and green on my brush at the same time, and I'm going to kind of just map out where I want them first. So I'm going to have this back row of them starting somewhere in through here, just going to make myself a little bit of a dot in through there, and I'm going to bring the side of it, I would say probably somewhere in through here, the left hand side. I don't want them very tall. I'm just going to have these maybe 2 or 3 inches in height. I want them to have different bottoms to them so they look like, you know, maybe one's in front of the other one. So I'm just kind of lightly tapping in these triangular type of shapes. You can have some taller, skinnier ones. You can have some shorter, wider ones. We're going to have them have snow on them in a little while, so this is just really trying to get the shape in play. I want some smaller ones over and through here, so I'm just kind of tapping in this triangular type of shape. The area that I'm headed in right now, this is going to be where my princess is going to be walking, so I don't even really need to do much in through here, just making sure that I've got something representational. So if there's little peekaboo spots behind her body, I can account for the that area being covered. So they're all kind of messy at the bottom, and if you want to, you can, I'm going to wash and dry my brush and just kind of clean up where that snow is. So I didn't say I was going to use brown, or white. So I just picked up a little bit of white and brown just to kind of make sure that this transition into here is good. I could have done that when I add the snow on them later, but that'll be up to you when you want to take care of that. And now I'm going to wash and dry my brush again and put black and green on it. And I'm going to start with this big tree over here on the right hand side. So black and green are going on my brush at the same time, about equal parts of both. I'm going to just kind of give myself a little bit of a triangular type of shape coming from the corner of here all the way down into this area. I want to make sure that I don't have any weird show of this line in through here, so I'm going to bring that right to the edge of there. And then this whole area in the middle here can just kind of be dotted. You don't need to do anything fancy with this center area. I'll show you how to put the branches on in a second, but right now I'm just kind of dotting in my my black and my green. I'm not over dotting it, which means I'm not over blending it, because I want to have these color variations represented underneath what's going to be my snow later. So I'm just allowing for this dark mix of the black and the green without it being a solid color. And even if you have little peekaboo spots of the stuff of your color underneath, that's fine. And then once I've got that triangular type of shape, now I can just kind of start bringing out some branches. But I want to make sure that I'm not leaving a weird outline. So I am going to bring out some branches all along the edges, and they can be, some can be longer, some can be shorter, some can kind of be hanging out, you know, and drooping down, whatever visually works for you, as long as you have the generic kind of triangular type of shape. It's okay if these come out at different angles, and that's looking pretty good. I got some good distance on some of those, and then I'm going to do the same exercise on a tree over here. So I'm going to use my black and green and decide how far out I want this to go. I definitely wanted to kind of meet somewhere in through here. And this is pretty good distance down at the bottom. So I think I'm going to just kind of take this from here and give myself a little bit of an outline coming up in through here. And then again, just kind of dot in my whole tree with my black and my green. And you can, of course, have some spots that are lighter or darker than others. I'm going to have a couple kind of hanging over this bottom area. And again, this is just the base coat of the trees. So as you're going through the process, if you still see some peekaboo spots of that background, that's okay. We just need this dark base to help us start the tree. And then, of course, once I've got this dotted in, I will give myself some fun branches. So now I'm just going to use kind of the edge or the side of my brush to help me along the way and give me these great edges to the branches. Maybe we've got some kind of coming out a little bit further and giving a little bit more distinct shape to it. And you don't just want like a little single line to poke out. So make it almost gradually go out, and that'll help make it look a little bit more natural. And then once you've got that done, we're going to be using our small brush. I'm just adding a little bit more green in through here, so when it dries, I've got a good representation of the dark and the light. And then I'm going to put this large brush away, take out my small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint a castle. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my dark blue, black, and white. And if I decide I want to go into any other colors, I certainly will, and I'll let you know, but I'm pretty certain those are going to be my dominant colors. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my dark blue, and I'm going to create myself my base for my castle. And then we're just going to add a couple of little highlights and shadows, and it'll be done. The fun part about building a castle is you can use your imagination and just some really basic shapes. So I'm going to have mine up here on the top of my hill. I'm going to be doing a series of rectangles, triangles, and a whole bunch of little line or mark making. So I'm going to start with some rectangles. I've got my dark blue on my brush. I also have a little bit of water on my brush, which is going to make my paint nice and smooth so I can create some nice clean lines. So I'm going to start over here on the left hand side, just give myself a little bit of a rectangle type of a shape. I'm going to create another rectangle type of a shape next to it that's a little bit taller. I'm going to just color those in with my dark blue color. At the bottom where it meets my my mountain, I'm going to leave a really soft edge. So as I come down with this particular shape, I can just almost blend it into that hilltop. So that's going to make it look like the fog from the hill is just kind of filling in the bottom of that of the castle part. I'm going to do another one that's maybe a little bit taller in through here. This rectangle is going to be a little bit wider. Maybe we'll make this one over here. And yours does not have to be exactly as mine. Mine is created from my imagination, so you can make yours created from your imagination. If you want yours taller or having more more information around it, you can certainly do that. I just wiped my brush off so I can get this soft edge at the bottom of this rectangle. And I'm going to create another kind of longer one. Maybe this one is maybe a little bit shorter than that one. This one's going to come all the way over. We'll bring this one over to here. And this will be my last base rectangle that I create. And I'll color this one in. And then I'm going to do some little towers and some detail. And then we'll put a couple of highlights and shadows on. And again, I'm just creating this with basic shapes. If you wanted yours to be more elaborate and having, you know, different type of architectural detail to it, you could certainly use your imagination, or you could use references from castles around the world. There's some really beautiful castles all around the world that you could use as a reference. Now what I'm going to do, now that I got my basic kind of foundation. I'm going to build a whole bunch of little towers. So I'm going to come up from this corner, give myself a skinny kind of tower in through here with maybe a little triangle on the top, and then maybe a little lookout area in through here, and have fun with it. Whatever you want to create on yours is up to you. I'm going to put another tower in through here. Maybe this one is a little bit wider. I think I'm going to have this one be the tallest one of them all. So we're going to bring this one all the way up to the tippy top, and then maybe make it a little bit wider as it comes down in through here. And if it doesn't line up perfectly with, you know, your rectangle that you did, that's okay. Just create whatever type of detail that you want. Maybe you want to put flags at the top, or you know, any fun detail is that you can imagine you can put in your castle. I think I'm going to put a little kind of balcony off of this one, so I'm going to do a line like that. And of course you could certainly use a smaller brush if you wanted to. I'm going to just put some vertical lines in through there, and maybe we've got another kind of wider but shorter tower kind of coming off of this corner in through here, and put as many as you want. You can make them they don't have to have these pointy tops to them either, these rectangle or triangle type of tops. You can certainly do anything that you'd like. Maybe I want a little skinnier piece in through here with another triangle in through here. And again, just basic shapes can create the most fascinating little castles imaginable. So you get to explore whatever details and fun stuff that you want. I think I'm going to have a couple of little, maybe smaller pieces of a building in through here. Maybe one there, one here. Maybe there's, you know, some special rooms up in through here. Maybe we've got some windows. Maybe we've got another kind of balcony in through here. Maybe we've got a smaller area in, maybe there's a bridge up in through here. Maybe we've got maybe a little chimney or something in through there. So again, just have fun. Maybe off of this one we've got another fun little balcony of sorts. Maybe this one is a special balcony that's got, you know, some kind of trellis or something on it. You can do, I think I want that all the way in. Yeah, there we go. That looks good. And then maybe I've got one final kind of tower off of this edge over here. I think I'm going to bring this whole corner up like that, and then maybe we'll put the tower on the left-hand side of it. Again, doesn't have to be in the center, doesn't have to be exactly as mine. Create yours in whatever fashion you want. Put a little thing in through there, a little triangle here. You can have them whatever way you want. And then we'll have one final little detail coming in through here. And then once I've got all of these, my shapes the way that I want them to be, now I'm going to just sprinkle in some highlights and shadows. So I've already kind of told, oh, maybe I'll put one more little thing over on this side. This feels like it's a little vacant over here. Let's just kind of put another little balcony. I think all castles have to have lots of little balconies so people can go and you know, enjoy the beautiful scenery. There we go. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have highlights and shadows. I've already told the viewer that the light is over in here somewhere, so I can have a whole bunch of light marks on the right hand side of these particular objects and dark marks on the left hand side. I can also use dark marks for doors and things of that nature. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put a tiny bit of black paint on my brush, and I'm going to create a whole bunch of little doors, maybe windows, little shadowy areas. This is going to create some depth or texture, little bit of additional detail on my castle. Again, you don't have to do yours exactly as mine. Maybe I've got a couple of windows and some molding of sorts. You can put shadows anywhere. Just imagine them to be, again, either little shadows of, say, one of these pillars, or they could be windows, or they could be doors. They could, you know, they could represent a bunch of different things depending on where your imagination is taking you to. So if I want this all to look like one piece on the end here, I just carry the shadow all the way down, put a little shadow behind that piece of the building, and now it looks like this piece is separated from that piece. So you can have fun with these little tiny details. Maybe I put a couple of little windows in this one coming down in through here. So just have fun with that. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a highlight. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put my dark blue plus white on my brush. So I'm going to have both dark blue and white on my brush, and I'm going to be putting just these little streaks of highlights on some of the areas. I don't need to do much. I'm really just going to kind of bring a bit of highlight over on this right hand side of some of the objects. You might use a little bit more white than your dark blue, so you can elevate that highlight however you want. If you want yours a little bit more bold and you want to be able to see it in front of the sky, you might need to use a little bit more white. So that's going to be wherever your visual preference is. If you want it to be bold, use more white. If you want it to be subtle, use more of your dark blue. So I'm going to make this one a little bit lighter over on this right hand side, and then I would just kind of let it dry after that and sit and fiddle with it. If I want more drama or if I want less, I will definitely work that out as it's drying, but I'm thinking that this is looking pretty good. I might not do anything more to it. And then we are going to be using our large brush for the next step. So once you've got your castle done, you can put your small brush away, take out your large brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be finishing our trees. I'm going to be using my large brush. The colors I'm using are brown, white, my custom background blue, and maybe a little bit of black for the shadows underneath the trees. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do these ones first, and I'm going to have them look a little bit softer and out of focus, and then we'll make these trees have a lot more in focus details to them. I'm going to create a custom light brown color for my snow on these ones, so that way they look a little bit softer and off in the distance. I'm going to use my medium brush to pre-mix myself my light brown color, which is right here. All I did to get to that was I used brown and white, and I would say about equal parts of both. I think I need a little bit more brown on that. So about equal parts of brown and white should get you in a similar vicinity as I'm in. It doesn't have to be anything perfect. We're going to be using very little bit, but I am also going to be using this as a highlight to my girl's hair. So I'm making it enough so I have for that as well. So once I've got that, I'm going to be putting my medium brush away, take out my large brush, and I put a very tiny bit of this light brown on my brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be dotting these trees and allowing it to look like there is a little bit of snow on them. I don't need to dot the whole thing. I'm just really giving them the illusion of this soft kind of snow on them. I know, again, my girl is going to be in this, my princess is going to be in this vicinity over here on the left-hand side, so I know that that's going to be covered a lot. On these trees here, I'm going to have the right side a little bit brighter, but I still am going to use a little bit of this light brown on the left side of the trees, so I'm really just kind of tapping that in. Now I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of my white on my dirty brush, and I'm going to tap in just a little tiny bit over on the right hand side of those trees. You could actually, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my custom background blue as well, just to get this to go just a little bit softer so it's not so vibrant on these trees. And I'm just kind of tapping it with the corner of my brush or the side of my brush, and I'm trying to keep that brightness on the right side of some of these trees. And then I'm just going to get it to just kind of meld right in with that ground. So just really soft texture in through here. Nothing that is going to steal the show. Just want it to look like these trees are kind of off in the distance. I'm just adding a little bit more. The top of this tree is a little bit too invasive for me, so just softening it up just a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move on to my big trees. So my big trees are going to have this custom background blue on the back side of them, and then I'll put some lightness or bright white snow on the tips that are facing that the light source. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a little shadow down here. I'm just wiping my brush off on my paper towel. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my background blue plus a tiny bit of black on my brush, and again, very little bit on my brush. And then I just want a little bit of a shadow back here. I didn't like that white line that was underneath it, so I'm just kind of counteracting that a little bit, because if my light source is over there, I would naturally have a little bit of a shadow on the back side of this tree, and I want to kind of take care of this before I put the snow on it, so that way the snow can kind of hide the edges if I needed to. And I'm just going to soften this out so it doesn't look like we've got too much happening in through here, just something that's going to look realistic but not take our eye off of the other stuff. And then this side over here again is going to be kind of disguised by her, and this would be bright anyways. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my background blue on my dirty brush, and I'm going to put some snow on the back side of these trees by using a dotting type of brush stroke and making it look like I've got some branches kind of hanging down. I think the trick to this is just not dotting the whole thing equally. I'm just kind of thinking, oh, well, there's some branches in through here, so I'm almost giving it a diagonal type of dotting direction, so that way it almost looks like those branches have a little bit of that darker snow on them. And I just keep picking up that color to give myself just a little bit back on this back side. I'm not doing the whole thing. I am, bringing a little bit towards the edges where I am going to put some white in a minute, but I need this blue, this softer color to transition into the brighter tone in the front that I'm going to put in a minute. So that looks pretty good on that side. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing over here on the left-hand side. So again, just kind of using this downward type of directional brush stroke in order to give the illusion that there's branches that are kind of leaning over. It doesn't have to be systematic. It's much better if you don't make it systematic, because if it's too systematic, it won't look natural. So I just know that these branches, when they've got snow on them, they tend to kind of lean over and just get weighted down. So that's where my head takes me when I'm doing this, leaving some of that green showing, some of the black showing, so just trying not to overdo it. And then once I've got that on there, I'm going to start giving myself a little bit of bright white snow. I think I'm going to put, not wash my brush, I'm going to pick up some white on my dirty brush. And again, less is more. You can always add more. It's really tough to take away. And I just need to add some little bits onto these tips as if it's being seen, it's being illuminated from whatever that light source is over in that corner. So just bringing quite a bit up in through here, so it looks like it is again being lit up by whatever's on the other side. And if you feel like you want to carry anything down into this little corner in through here, feel free to do so. And then I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. So just little bits on the edges. And this side might not be as bright as that one, because that side's a little bit closer. So I feel like I want to pick up a little bit more of my background blue, just so this doesn't go as white as the other side. So I'm just kind of playing with the tonal values here with my white and my light blue or background blue, whatever you'd like to call that. And you can overlap a little bit. I'm going to put just a little bit on these tips in through here, bring just a little bit back in through here. And then again, I would, as always, just let it dry, see if there's any additional marks that I want to make, and then we're going to be using our piece of chalk for the next step. So once you've got your beautiful snow on your trees, you can wash and dry. Or no, you can put this large brush away, take out, I'm having fun painting snow. You can take out your piece of chalk or whatever your drawing utensil is and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're gonna do for the next step is we're gonna draw an outline for our princess. I'm gonna be using my chalk. You could certainly use any drawing utensil that is comfortable for you. I a lot of times like to use chalk because it's very easy to erase and make corrections with. So I'm gonna guide you through a series of markers, and by the time we're done, we'll have something that hopefully resembles a young princess off to her castle in the middle of winter. I'm going to find myself the center of my canvas, top to bottom, left to right. This is, for me, is about right in through here. What I'm going to do from there is I'm going to come up about 3 inches and over to the left about 1.5 inches. Give myself a little bit of a marker right in through here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down from that, I would say about 4 inches somewhere in through here. This is going to represent her waist. I'm going to give myself a horizontal line that is, I would say, maybe about 1.5 inches wide, somewhere in through here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself a tall oval type of a shape that's going to connect these 2 corners to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come straight up from this corner in through here. I'm going to round it at the top and then bring it back down in through here. Doesn't have to be perfect, just something that'll give you the idea of her midsection. Then I'm going to put the bottom section of her dress on. This is going to be her rear end in through here, and she's just going to have a long flowy dress. So I'm going to, in the bottom left hand corner of my canvas, give myself a marker in through there, and then if this is the kind of center of the bottom of my canvas, I'm going to come, I would say, over to the right, maybe about 4 inches, give myself another marker. I'm going to connect here to here and here to here. So this is going to just kind of come down in through here. And this is a dress, so think of it as flowing. When it gets about down to maybe 2 inches or so from the bottom of your canvas, this is when I start to kick it out. So something like that. And then on the left-hand side, this is going to be her rear end, and she's walking that way. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a bump over on this side. So just a little bit of a bump, nothing major, just a little bit in through there, then bring it down, and right about here is where I kick it out and start to wave it out to that corner. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her a couple of arms. So I'm going to come almost halfway between here and here. So about, if this is about my halfway mark, I'm a little higher than that, somewhere in this vicinity. This is going to give me her shoulders. I'm going to give one shoulder there, and the right shoulder is going to be a little bit higher, so I can give just a little bit of a higher shoulder in through there. I'm going to give her arms, so she's kind of, her arms are behind her and they're at a little bit different of an angle. I'm going to come to the left of her waist in through here, maybe about 1.5 inches, and just up a little bit, give myself a diagonal line like that. I'm going to come down from this corner here about 3/4 of an inch, some 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, somewhere in there. So I can connect here to here, here to here. That's her sleeve. I'm going to give her a little mitten hand right in through there, and I'm going to do something similar on the other side. I'm going to come over to the right from her waist. I would say maybe about 1.5 inches, somewhere in through here, and down about 1 inch. This is going to give me the bottom of her wrist, somewhere in through there. You can make it bigger so you can see it. I'm going to connect this corner to up in through here, so a little bit of a curve in through there, and then this one is going to come in a similar spot to how far down you did this one, so somewhere in through here, and bring this down like that. I'm going to give her a little mitten hand in this direction like that. And then the only other lines I'm going to make is she's going to have like a sheer type of layer to her dress, so I'm going to put an outline for that. It's going to start at her waist in through here. And then on the bottom left-hand side, I'm going to come up from here about an inch like that. And here, I'm going to come almost about halfway between here and here, give myself a marker. So I'm going to connect here to her hand to that marker and through there, because her hand is holding this sheer part like this, and then like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to connect this to her hand like that. And then on the other side of her hand, I can bring this down in a nice like wavy type of a way. So it looks like there's some air underneath it. And then that's all I'm going to do for the outline. We're going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put your chalk away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the base coat for our princess. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors that I'm going to use are black, white, light brown, my background blue, and blue. I'll call them out as I'm going to use them. What I'm going to do, I'm making myself a custom color for her dress, which is another shade of blue, because this is just a wintry wonderland with a whole bunch of cold colors. So we're going to do a nice shade for the dress. She's going to have the base coat of her mittens is going to be with tan, and the base coat of her hair is going to be with black. She's going to have brownish hair, but I want to do a black base for the hair. So I'm going to start with her dress color. I have pre-mixed my color, which is right here. How I got to this was I used my background blue, that custom blue that we made, and then I added more cobalt blue and a little bit of white to it. So I, in essence, just kind of intensified the blue hue to it. So this way it stands out as the bluest color in the painting. So she becomes the focal point. You could, of course, make this any color you want. Maybe you want her to have a pink dress or a purple dress. Feel free to make it your own. So this is the color I'm going for. I'm going to paint her dress in, but I'm going to start at the top because I want this to kind of dry where I'm going to put her hair on later, or in a minute. So I'm going to start right up in through here. I'm just going up to my line, which will be covered by her hair in a couple of minutes, but I just want to have a nice seamless transition underneath her hair. So I'm just going to color this in. I'm bringing it right out to the edge of my chalk. You can even have fun with the dress, give her some little full cuffs if you want to. It's got to look kind of warm in my opinion because it's cold in the place where she lives, so I'm making sure that it feels like it's, you know, not too tight around her wrists and stuff like that, so it's got a little bit of a cozy feel to it. And I'm just bringing it out to my chalk mark and just bringing this down and right into that right into the wrist area. And I'm just doing a thin coat because I know that I'm going to be doing lots of details on top of this. So I'm really just looking to have a base coat to work from right now. Again, just bringing this down to her hand and then on this inside area. We're not going to do a base coat for the sheer part of her dress. We're going to be painting that on top later. So I'm going to leave that part unattended right now. And then when we go to paint it later, we can make modifications to it and we will get rid of that chalk mark. So again, just on these sides, bringing it right to my pencil mark. As I get down towards the bottom portion, I'm okay if this dress kind of merges into the snow. You can really make it feel like she's part of the scenery if you want to, and just kind of get this dress to either disappear or just maybe the train of the dress could be see-through, could be you know, just merging in with that land. So feel free to customize that if you want to. I'm going to just bring this down on this right hand side. Just keep reloading my brush with this custom blue and then just bringing it all the way to my chalk mark. And if you get to an area where you don't, you know, you're finding that your chalk mark was maybe a little outside of where you wanted to put that color, just leave the chalk and then you can erase it with a little bit of water or with a future painting step. And then I'm just going to bring this all the way down to the end. Now I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to paint the base coat for her mittens or gloves or whatever you'd like to call them. I'm just going to use that tan or the light brown color that we used for the snow on the trees. And I will be having these a little bit lighter later, but right now this is just going to act as my base coat. If you needed to use a smaller brush to do this, feel free to do so. I think I need to bring this out just a little bit more. There we go. And pull that in a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes you gotta reshape that little hand. And then this one is just gonna kind of curve down and over like this. And mittens or gloves are great because they can really be big and puffy, and they can make the hand look a little distorted in size. So if yours comes out a little bit oddly shaped, we'll just blame it on the mitten. Then I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to put the base coat for her hair on. So I'm going to use black paint as my base coat, but of course you could use anything that you want. I just wanted there to be some good contrast in the surroundings. So I'm starting with black paint. We've got obviously the shape of her head up at the top, but I want to make it look a little bit more realistic of a shape. So once I get this colored in, I will make the top part of her head just a little bit wider than where it meets her neck, and I'm going to pull some hair down into her dress area as well. So this is just my black paint right in through here, and I'm going to reshape that head just a little bit, make it just a tiny bit wider up at the top in through here, bringing it down like that. And again, this is just to make it a little bit more realistic. And then down her back, I'm going to have her hair coming way down to almost her waist. So I'm going to just kind of pull maybe a little couple pieces out here and then just bring it down the back side of her arm in through here down to like her armpit, and then I'm just going to pull some really carefree pieces down this back. And I see that I'm running through a little bit of wet blue, and I'm all right with that. I'm allowing it to just kind of intermingle because, again, I know that I'm going to have lots of other details on the hair to help with that. And on this side over here, I'm going to just kind of pull it over this shoulder and then maybe just kind of bring it down and out. You can even pull it past her dress a little bit if you want to. On this side, something like that. It's going to look like it's like the wind from the winter air is just pulling it. I just picked up a little bit more so I could pull just a couple of pieces out in through here, maybe get them to look like they're being blown in the wind a bit. And then we're going to be using our small brush for the next step. So once you've got this done, you can put this large or this medium brush away, take out your small brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to be finishing her mittens and the blue part of her dress. I'm going to be using my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are my dress blue, white, and black. And I'm going to start with my mittens. All I really need to do for my mittens is put a little bit of a shadow on the side that's away from the light source, and then put a little bit of a highlight on the outside of her mittens. And then on her dress, I'm going to be putting some strategic shadows, such as right in through here where I feel that her feet level is at the ground, to make it look like the dress kind of splays out at the bottom and tell us how tall she is. And then I'll be putting some shadows on the back side of her arms, maybe on the crook of her back, and then some highlights conversely on the side where the light is. So I'm going to start with her mittens with a touch of black on my brush to give myself just a little bit of shadow underneath her sleeve, and then over here on the left hand side of the mitten like this. And again, you can use a little bit of water on your brush just to give yourself a little bit of fluidity to it. I'm going to put this one in through here, and this one I think would have a little bit of shadow underneath because of the way her arm is. So I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow in through here. Now I'm going to wipe my brush off on my paper towel, and I'm picking up a little bit of white paint to give the outside highlight on her mitten in through here. And if you needed to, you could certainly pick back up a little bit of that tan to get that to transition if you wanted to, but I'm thinking that this is going to work out for me. I might pick up some of my tan in a second. So, so this one doesn't go too white on me. So I'm just putting a little bit of white in through. I'm thinking that these are white gloves, so that's why I am allowing them to kind of go pretty darn light on me with a little bit of that shadow to show the form. So I think I'm going to pick up some of that tan right now just to make sure that, again, this doesn't go too white on me. I'm just bringing it down towards the bottom of her mitten in through here, and then just making sure that that blends in well on the right hand side. So now what I'm going to do, after I put a little more white on her in here, so it stands out in front of the snow behind it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash and dry my brush, and I'm going to put a little bit of black on my brush in order to get black and a little bit of water on my brush in order to give me some shadowy areas on her sleeves. So I have black plus water. I'm going to put some little shadows on the bottom side of this sleeve, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And this is just, in essence, kind of telling where the back side of the arm is, as opposed to the front side to me, which is over on the far side where the light source is. So this is just helping to explain that story to the viewer. So I'm putting a little bit of this dark watered down black on this side to tell that story. I'm going to put a little bit behind this cuff of her sleeve in through here, and this also helps to show contrast in the painting. Again, just getting this to go nice and dark on this left hand side, something like that. I'm going to put a little bit in the crook of her back as well. This can tell maybe there's shadow from her hair, maybe there is shadow because of the shape of her body. So just something a little bit darker in through here where her waistline would be. I'm going to pick up her dress blue right now in order to get this to blend in. So if you ever have any difficulty blending certain areas, just pick up some of that the dress blue color, and that'll help you to get those areas to blend in a little bit. I'm going to put highlights in a second, but right now just working on these shadows. I'm also going to put a shadow in through here. So again, this is going to be my watered down black, which is very transparent and translucent because of the water that I'm using. You could certainly use a bit of liquid medium or something to thin out your paint, but I tend to use water. I'm going to start in through here. This is going to, again, tell the story of how tall she is. So I am telling the viewer that her dress is dipping in right here as it's landing on the ground, and then it kind of splays out. I'm going to pick up a little bit of water and my dress blue right now to get these colors to intermingle in through here and to show the folds of the fabric and what direction that they're going in. So I just keep on right now picking up water plus a little bit of my dress blue color, and that's going to get these to blend in, allow the viewer to understand what is happening with the folds of how the fabric is just kind of splaying out from this one internal position. And once we put the sheer layer of the dress on, that will also help to tell more of the story. I'm going to keep picking up my dress blue right now in order to make sure that I have this fully colored in right now. This will help to ensure that I have full coverage. If you wanted to add more shape to her body, you could also lighten up her rear end a little bit. That would give it a little bit more of a bump, but I might do that when I do my highlights. But right now, just adding my shadows on in through here, keep picking up my dress blue to get this to blend in. I'm going to put a little bit more darkness on this left-hand corner too. So I'm picking up my black plus my dress blue right now to give myself a little bit of darkness over in this corner, just so again, so I have that kind of perspective element where this is farther away than that from the light source. So by just turning this a little bit darker over and through here, it just continues to tell that same story. Now I'm going to add a little bit of highlight onto her dress. So I'm going to wash and dry my brush. I'm going to pick up my dress blue plus white. So I have both of those colors on my brush. I'm going to put a nice bright highlight over here on the right side of her arm in through here. And I'm going to blend it into her shoulder. So I put the brightest part on the edge, and now I'm just kind of blending it into her shoulder. So this way I've got that highlight from the light source, and then because I'm allowing it to blend back a little bit, that's going to show the form of her shoulder. So you might not get this on one shot. You might have to come back with a couple of different layers. I might even elevate the edge brightness if once it dries it's not as bright as I want it to be. I'm going to do the same thing over on her little wrist in through here. So just adding a bit of highlight on the right hand side of the piece of clothing, and then I can just kind of blend it into the sleeve itself. So the light spots, the lighter spots will bump out more towards the viewer. So if you want it to bump out even more, just kind of keep elevating that brightness on that area. So if I want her shoulder to pop out a little bit more, I just kind of keep putting a touch of white to get it to give her more form in that area. And then I'm going to just put a little bit of highlight on the front part of her body, right in through here. This is going to trail into the sheer part of it, but right now just kind of putting that white on there and then blending it in with my dress blue. So that works out there. And then on this sleeve over here, I'm picking up my white plus my dress blue, just giving a little tiny highlight over here on the top of her shoulder in through here, just as if we're seeing maybe a little glow from that other side. And this also helps to have this arm visible in front of that in front of the mountain, because it's pretty similar in tonal value, the colors that I'm using. So this little bit of a bright edge will help to set that apart. You could even, I feel like I want to make this bottom edge a little bit darker because I feel like I've lost it a little bit. So I just picked up a little bit more black to get the bottom edge of her sleeve a little bit darker, just so, again, so we can see it a little bit more in front of that background. And then I would just fiddle with it a little bit more if I want a little bit more black over here. And again, I'm just working on the tonal values right now in order to get it to do what I want. And then we're going to be using our medium brush for the next step. So once you've got the dress done, fiddle with it as much as you want. Oops, that was not what I wanted to do. Putting more white on my brush right now. You can fiddle with it as much as you want, and then you can wash or actually put the small brush away, take out your medium brush, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to paint the sheer part of her dress. I'm going to be using my medium brush. The colors I'm going to use, it's going to be dominant white, but I'm going to use a little bit of that light brown, and I might go into some of my dress blue as well. The trick here is to make it see-through. So I want to use a lot of moisture in my brush when I do this, so I can see the colors and all the information underneath it. I will be using a kind of a streaking type of brush stroke in order to tell the direction of the fabric. But I don't necessarily want it to go all white. So that's where I'm going to be using a little bit of that tan to kind of start the process, and then I'll build my way to the light pieces. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick up a little bit of my tan, and then I'm also going to dip my brush in my water and then tap my brush off on my paper towel. So what that does is it's going to put lots of moisture in my brush and allow me to pull this paint pretty far. This is going to start my process as to how I want this fabric to flow. She's holding it, she's walking that way, so I want there to look like there's kind of wind in it underneath it. So I'm going to have it kind of bump out right in through here, and then it's just going to kind of flow down towards the ground. So I have my paint on my brush. I'm going to first just kind of start this process by putting it in place. I want it to kind of come off of her in this direction like this, and then it's going to kind of pull back and over her rear end. So again, my tan plus water on my brush, I am pulling it kind of over her rear end. And again, you might, because I want this to be sheer and I want it to look like I can see through it, this beginning step to it may not seem like a whole heck of a lot, but that's the process that I use in order to get that dimensional kind of element to it. So I'm just kind of pulling it what I would believe to be out from the wind, and then what I'm going to do is give myself my footprint. I want this to kind of come down in through here, and again, I'm just using my watered down tan. I want it to kind of come over her rear end in through here, still just kind of pulling it in a curving manner. I'm going to kind of come down like this. Maybe it bumps out over in through here and pick up a little bit more so you guys can see what I'm doing. Where I have this bump in through here, maybe that kind of translates as more air in her transparent layer here. I'm picking up more of my tan plus water so I can get this to come out of her hand. So she's holding on to it with her hand, so that's where it's got to kind of come from, in through here like that, and then this side is going to come maybe down in this direction. And again, I'm just really giving myself my footprint right now with this see-through tan type of a color. It's going to now travel down with the rest of her garment down in through here, and because I'm using caution and water with my mixture, it's allowing me to really just kind of get this real natural look. And we'll start using the white in a minute, but this is again just gonna lay out everything as I want it to have that transparent appearance. You can see that dress underneath it, and now I just need to bring it over here on this right hand side. So I continue to reload my brush with my tan and my water. And through here, I'm going to bring this down like this, and then over on this edge, I just erased some of my chalk mark that I didn't like in through there. And then again, I want it to look like it's sheer. So I don't necessarily need firm edges to these lines. So I'm kind of blending them out a little bit. Maybe this one kind of comes over in this direction. Again, just trying to make it look like the movement of the fabric. So that's looking pretty good to me. Now I'm going to start incorporating white in the equation. So I just picked up white on my dirty brush, and I'm in essence going to do the same thing that I just did, only in again a little bit in a translucent type of way. So I have my white plus water on my brush right now. This is coming from this edge, and in my head I'm thinking that this cloth is part of the dress, like maybe it goes all the way up and is like the outside layer to her dress. As it comes over in through here, I'm mindful of her hand is kind of holding this, so I think it would kind of buckle a little bit or have a little bit more brightness to the fabric, maybe around her hand in through here where she's just kind of holding onto it, and maybe it like gets a little darker as it touches her hand, so it kind of dips in, so to speak. So that's looking pretty good. And if you can see the background behind this, that's the goal. That's my goal. And then I'm just going to kind of continue to add water to my brush and paint at the same time. This is going to come from over here. Oops, I just painted over her wrist. And again, I'm just kind of in my head thinking what direction this fabric is flowing in. And I'm proceeding with caution, which means I don't have a lot of paint on my brush. I'm proceeding with the idea that this part is bumping out the most. So again, speaking to what we talked about earlier, if you want it to bump out the most, you make it the lightest. So that's going to allow the viewer to understand that that part bumps out to us. And little pieces of the fabric can bump out a little bit more than others. If I want there to be a little air in the piece of fabric, I'm going to make it be brighter and whiter, so that way it looks like, again, it's bumping out a little bit more because there's air caught under it, and it's closer to the viewer. So this will help me to create that. And because I'm using the water with it, it's allowing me to have it nice and transparent, and making it look like it's nice and see-through, and I can kind of guide the viewer into understanding what it is that I want them to understand with what direction it's moving in. So that side's looking pretty good. I'm going to move over towards this right side. Again, I'm using white plus water right now to get this, to get the brighter pieces of my fabric. I just put that white on there, and then I'm just kind of pulling it back in the direction that I want the viewer to understand that the fabric is flowing. So this is going to go in this direction and allowing it to kind of fade out and kind of dissipate into the other fabric. And then maybe this kind of comes down in through here. I need more water on my brush because I see that it is skipping in through there. So that means that I don't have enough moisture, and it is showing the pockets in the canvas itself. So I just added a little bit more water to my brush to alleviate or eliminate that look to it. And then I'm just going to kind of get I don't need to do much more in through here because this is feeling like it's looking pretty good to me in through here. Just making sure that I've got that the way that I want, and then just a little bit on this side over here. So again, white plus water on my brush, and making sure that I've got this little hand, the information around this hand works out the way that I want. So brighter where I feel that the fabric kind of is buckled up a little bit, and then bringing this down in a flowing manner down in through here, and then maybe we've got a little bit obviously coming over on this side. So white plus water, it's just kind of a repeat type of process. And again, you can have yours as bright as you want or as subtle as you want. Again, maybe I got to move my canvas right here so I can hit this bottom edge here. Maybe you want yours to, again, have a little pink hue, or maybe you want your sheared part to be a little bit more blue. You could add more of another shade of blue in it if you wanted to. So I want this to bump out just a little bit, so I got it to go a little bit lighter. And then again, I would let it dry. I would, if I felt that I wanted to fiddle with it a little bit more, I certainly would. And then I'm going to be using my small brush for the next step. I'll probably add a little bit more lightness over in certain areas like this edge over here, but that's looking pretty good to me right now. So I'm going to call it, and I'm going to switch brushes to my small brush. So you can put your medium brush away, take out your small brush if you can ever stop, and get ready for the next step. All right, so what we're going to do for the next step is we're going to finish her hair. I'm going to use my small brush. The colors that I'm going to use are brown, light brown, and white. And I might use a little bit of black too, but I'm not sure yet if I'm going to use the black. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding movement to her hair. I want her to look like she has brown hair, so I'm going to be putting a layer of brown on top of this black, and then we're going to add some highlights to it. So I'm going to start with brown paint on my brush, and I'm going to in essence kind of put a second layer on here. My brown is very transparent or translucent, which means you can see through it. So I will definitely be able to see the black underneath, especially in this early stage of me putting this on here. But as I start layering the highlights to it, it'll get lighter and lighter, but I want there to be this dark undertone to it. So as I get towards these edges as well, I can pull more little pieces of hair out if I want to. I am going to be bringing it down the her side in through here. I want it to look really nice and natural, so I am going to even go outside of the footprint of my black pieces in some places, so that way it'll look like it's got a little bit more fullness to it. You can always add fullness to hair by just going outside of that initial footprint that you had put in. So again, I just keep picking up brown paint at this point because I know you're going to be able to see that black underneath it. I'm bringing it down in kind of a directional brush stroke that is just providing me with a little bit of movement on the hair. We're going to add even more movement when I start to add the highlights, but right now I'm kind of pulling it back over her shoulder and maybe bringing it as if, again, the wind is taking it, the wintry wind, so something like that. And maybe we've got a couple of additional pieces kind of coming out over on this side as well. I really love to have long, flowy hair that has lots of movement in it. So when I do these type of paintings, I do spend a little bit of extra time making sure that I've accomplished what I want, especially on the hair, because I think it just adds to the story. You know, it adds to what's happening in the atmosphere. It adds to who she is as a figure in the painting. So it just adds a lot of information. So it's one of those details I really enjoy painting too, so sometimes I take longer than I should. So now I'm going to pick up a little bit of my light brown without washing my brush. So a little bit of that light brown, and I'm going to start to add my highlights. The light source is over there, so I'm going to be adding a little bit on the top of her head, a lot on this right-hand side, and then little peekaboo spots over on the left-hand side. So a little bit on the top, in through here. Again, I'm picking up tan without washing my brush, so I do have that brown on there too. I'm going to pull a little bit down in this direction. So this is going to, again, start to speak to the movement of the hair and how wavy or curly it is. I'm going to bring a couple of pieces back in through here. And again, not doing much right now, just kind of putting some individual strands in to get my idea of where I want everything to go. I'm using that tan or the light brown, which I guess is tan, on my dirty brush. So this is giving me these beautiful, delicate kind of strands of hair. And again, in a second, I will add even more with some white, but right now just taking my time, adding the little strands that I want, having it speak to the direction of the hair and what's happening with that wind. I'm going to stick a couple of bright pieces over on this left-hand side. I will, again, use a tiny bit of white in a minute, but right now, just kind of getting all of the motion in the hair that I want. I'm going to pick up a little bit of brown now on my dirty brush just to get some additional lighter pieces back here, but not too light. So this way it transitions into this back area. And if you're going through this back and you're not able to cover all your black, or it's looking a little unfinished, you could certainly pick up a little bit more black paint to help along with filling in spots. But I'm thinking that this looks pretty good. I'm just going to add a little bit of highlight now. So I'm going to pick up tan plus white on my brush. So I have my light tan plus white, and I did not wash my brush. So again, it'll just allow me to get some nice tonal shifts in a nice natural way. And I'm not adding a lot of highlight, or bright highlight, just a little bit over on this right hand side, getting a couple of these pieces of hair to just kind of catch that wind, maybe pull it back in this direction. And I want it to look fluid, so I make sure that I have enough moisture on my brush, be it with paint or with medium, whatever works. I just am constantly, knowing that I want there to be movement, but I don't want it to look dry. I want there to, I want the hair to flow. So in order for me to do that, I need to keep that paint on the moister side. So that's looking pretty good on that right hand side. I'm going to add a couple of peekaboo bright spots on this left hand side. So I just added a touch more white to my brush, just giving myself just little tiny itty bitty peekaboos of a couple of pieces of the hair, just kind of grasping a tiny bit of light, and I think that's about it. You can certainly fiddle with it as much as you want. I might let it dry, and if there's a piece of hair or two out of place that I want to add to, I certainly will. But we are going to be using this same small brush for the next step. So once you've got her beautiful hair finished, you can wash and dry this small brush. Just adding a little more light on the top of her head to show the form of her head. There we go. You can wash and dry this small brush and get ready for the next step. All right, so we are on to the final step. This is the final step of every painting, which is to sign it. So I typically sign mine in the bottom left or the bottom right. I'm going to be using my small brush. I'm going bottom right, and I'm going to use her dress blue to sign this. So I like to sign mine with my initials, but you could certainly sign yours with your first name or the date or a symbol. Whatever you like for your identifying mark to be is up to you, because it's your painting and you get to sign it however you would like. And that is going to conclude this painting. I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you painted yourself a beautiful winter princess, and I look forward to painting and sipping with you again sometime.